Okay, yep. So I'm currently still in Reading, living in student accommodation. Um, my studio space currently is my bedroom, like many people. I basically have a setup of like a rug on the floor covered in plastic. Luckily, I have all like my materials in like boxes and such. I think is very similar to I think what most people are finding their situations being. I think I've basically decided to have a continuation of what my artwork was at the end of the last academic year, which was when we were obviously in the first lockdown. It was then that I moved on to painting onto my own body and molds of my body, um, which obviously I've continued and I'm still able to do in the current circumstances we find ourselves in. Yeah, so I think it's very important to know the sort of context and the sort of where your artwork is being placed in the history of related themes and where you ground your work. So I a lot of my research is around feminist art practices. Quite an important part of that is actually looking back and seeing sort of the pitfalls and obviously like in the 1970s the explicit use of the female body was common in artists such as like Schneemann and Kruger, and critiquing this and being like you can see they were trying to reclaim the body, but also actually this brings up other issues of the male gaze is still present and the objectification of the female body, and how can we reclaim the body without it being explicit is something I aim to do in my work. Um, Another kind of critique that I bring into my artwork is the male use of the female body. So a male artist and the tools of their work is the female body. So a really prevalent example of this is Yves Klein. Um, so obviously my work is very different in this regard, the fact that I'm using my body as a woman and I'm reclaiming my own body, I'm commenting on my body, I'm talking about my experience, like I'm not making sort of assumptions onto other people's bodies, and how they inhabit their body and using someone else's body as a medium in my art practice. And then thinking more about my work in terms of like it is still a painting practice, but obviously now the canvas is my body, so that in some ways there are it can be seen as expanded painting, but it is also still very expressive. I did a lot of finger painting before I moved on to painting onto my body, which I still do use the process of finger painting. So again, that's like another layer of me interacting with my own body in that part of remapping and reclaiming of my body as a woman. Um, so kind of like painting artists that have kind of influenced my practice would include like Linda Menglis and Jackson Pollock. Um, and then maybe like um, to give sort of the context of this kind of mapping. And obviously I map the body and then I remove a lot of the details. I remove the skin that doesn't have paint on. I sometimes keep like the outlines, say like obviously behind me you can see outlines of like thighs, and obviously these can maybe be seen as sort of like the boundaries of the skin, and sort of playing around with like how much detail can I remove and the body is still present, and this idea of presence in absence, which Anna Miendetta used in her art practice and blended her body into nature landscapes, or had, well, her body actually in the piece but blended in, and then she also sometimes had the outline of a body into the landscape, but no body was there. But obviously, you could still tell there was a body there. So obviously, I paint my body. The process is I paint my body. I then remove a lot of the where the paint is not touching. I remove a lot of that skin, so the only surface that is left is where the paint lies and these boundaries of the skin, um, as I guess almost like the opposite of a silhouette. say if you were to like draw an outline around your own body. Yeah, so that's quite a lot of sort of context for the sort of ways of which I approach my work, and the influences. Yeah, no, it is really important to still be able to connect with people, um, especially like with the amount of time like we are now based in lockdown. We've obviously had some practice runs. So yeah, no, I think using spaces like this sort of online video calls have been great, to see people, but also like everyone having a lot of screen time these days is really nice just to have phone calls with friends. Um, and I think I've really focused this year on having more collaborations, and obviously now with showcasing our artwork online, we now have like a live stream exhibition committee, which I've also been a part of, which has been really nice to obviously see people on a regular basis, each week, and be able to keep updated.